Okay.
Thank you. Right, now I'm struggling to see the screen that I want. So I'm very sorry, everybody. Let's start again. So the AGM, as you probably realize, consists of one or two parts. And thank you very much, everyone who's here listening. It is helpful to have the committee and other members listening in so that people can give us feedback on the direction of the branch. And we really do welcome your opinions about everything that's going on. So if you want to be critical, that's fine. And if you want to praise us, that's even better. If you want to be critical, then Brenda's the person to talk to, obviously. And if you want to praise us, then it's obviously me that you should talk to. The way we're going to do this is that I'm going to give a report, followed by the Treasurer's report from Chris. Then we get the committee elections, which will be Dave Wilton. And then any other business, officially the end of the AGM, but no one has told us they have any other business to bring up. So we will pause at the end if there's time to see if anyone wants to raise any points. But in theory, the branch rules say that that should be notified ahead of the day. Right then. So here we go. Now, I thought that we did a really good job of collecting records in 2020-21, which is the last year, not this year, because we couldn't get out and do much conservation work, sadly, which I think is the most important thing we do. I personally think that the conservation work we do is more important than the recording, but we do a massive amount of recording, and I'm hoping this year we will see even more. The map on the right-hand side of the screen at the minute shows where records have come from this year. So this is the 2021
I don't think
season.
you're sharing, Nick.
Am I not? I beg your pardon. Right, hang on. I do beg your pardon, everybody. Let's start again. It's very strange. I think it might be. I've got one that should have closed that didn't.
Here it comes.
So
yeah. That's showing the end of the slideshow.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully going to make it possible to show this one. Right, here we go. Now, is that sharing or not?
No, I'm not seeing.
Oh, blimey. What's very strange is that, there we go. Right, thank you. Could you report, David, whether at last you can see it?
Yes. Not yet in presenter mode.
Is it not?
Nice. Now it is. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. I do apologize, folks. I hadn't closed the previous one properly, so the new one wouldn't open, at least in the share screen mode. So if everyone can see that, you'll see, I'll just say again that the way we're going through this is that we have to take apologies for non-attendance. I haven't personally got any. No, we don't. Yes, we do. We have to take apologies for non-attendance, and I've heard of none. We have to read the minutes of the AGM, which were in Hare Streak. We don't read them out now. We read them in advance and tell the committee if there's anything you want to discuss today that was in those minutes, and no one has brought anything to our attention. That we're going to get the Treasurer's report from Chris, and the committee elections will be dealt with by Dave Wilton. Any other business, as I said. Right, now, back into the bit I was just talking about when David very kindly pointed out to me I was making a mess of it, which I was. So we didn't do very much conservation work in 2020-21 because COVID meant we were all told to stay at home, not to mix, and we couldn't go out and work. It was a real shame. We had a whole load of work planned and we had to let it go. As a result, we did far less of what I think is our most important thing, but in my opinion, the second most important thing, which is recording, was actually far, far better in 2020. The 2020 season saw a tremendous increase in recording. I think we're probably going to find that 2021 holds its own and is equally good, but it's brilliant that the recording that started in 2020, perhaps the first time recording for some people, has continued. And the map that I hope everyone can see now on the right shows where records have come from this year, 2021. You'll see there are one or two holes, as usual, up here in northwest Oxfordshire. We really do have trouble penetrating that area and getting people in there recording. Very strange. But one or two gaps in other places. So if you can spot a gap roughly near where you live, then you might like to think about recording there in 2022. And down at the bottom, you'll see that so far this year, we've had about 100,000, just over 100,000 records of butterflies. Right, now the reason the records are important is because they allow us to give advice to people. So if we know where butterflies are, then we can go out and we can say to people, did you know you've got this rare butterfly on your land? And they often say no. And then we say, well, we perhaps could help it if you like. And usually they say how. And then we can perhaps have a conversation about what we could do and what they could do. And it leads to things, as on this occasion, where Sean in the picture spotted chalkhill blues on this site, spoke to the management, and they agreed that he could put some horseshoe vetch in. A similar thing is happening not far from Butler's Hangings, where a member contacted the owners of a farm and said to them, did you know you've got a Donis and chalkhill blue flying on your land? Could we visit and have a look, talk to you about the way to improve it? And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want, that people who go out recording and spot things in new places, spot things in places where something could be done to help them, get in touch with the owners, possibly get in touch with us, the committee, and ask for help to do that, but get on and try to help the butterflies in the places where we see them. We also, at the other end of the scale sort of thing, is opposite polemic, go out and help organisations who are doing work of that sort on sites where we've got no direct involvement in the sense that it isn't our reserve, but we go along and help them because we can see that what they're doing is helping the butterflies and moths that we want helped. So here, as it says, Mark was using his brush cutter, the one that the Upper Thames branch had paid for the training that Mark received to get what's called a ticket to be able to use it safely amongst other people and out on private sites. So if you know of an organisation who are doing work which is obviously helping butterflies and moths, then please let us know, because we're very happy to send our volunteers along to help them. And we do an awful lot of work with another organisation called the Chiltern Rangers. They do loads of stuff in the Chilterns where we've got very good butterfly populations, as you'll probably know, and they're just excellent. Everyone who works with the Chiltern Rangers will tell you they're probably one of the best conservation groups in the sense of the work they do aids conservation, even though they're set up to be slightly different. They're a group that go out and do work for landowners, but it's targeted perfectly at helping butterflies and moths and other things that live in these grasslands in the Chilterns, as well as work they do on freshwater habitats, which we have rather less to do with, understandably, because not so many, just a very few moths are associated with freshwater habitats. And one of the other good things about the Chiltern Rangers is the number of events they have with school children coming along and being introduced to nature. Many of them just never go to a nature reserve until they go out with Chiltern Rangers. And some of those, of course, go on to realise just how wonderful it is. I'm going to show this slide, which was from a little while back because we didn't have any winter work last year to show you really. But this just shows how when you've got quite a big group, you can clear a big area and scrub, which is suppressing tiny plants of the sort that our butterflies and many moths want to have their caterpillars feeding on, are able to flourish again. So as it says here, please consider when you might join, not if, please consider when you might join us. This really is important work. Between now and Christmas, we've got quite a lot going on, and obviously after Christmas we've got even more, because there's a lot longer after Christmas than there is before Christmas in the winter work season. But you'll notice that the first of these is tomorrow on the Sustrans route near Upton. I'm not going to read all these out to you. All the details are on the Upper Thames branch website. Please, if you can get to all of these, do consider it. It really is the most important thing we can do. Most of us enjoy seeing butterflies and moths, and that's why you're listening to me now. We won't see them if there's nowhere for their caterpillars to live. That would be as simple as that. If we tarmac the whole country, there'll be no butterflies and moths to look at because the caterpillars will have no food to eat. One more thing about conservation work parties, I think this might be my last point on it, is that we are desperately in need of a first aider, please. We have had trained first aiders in the past, but COVID has come along, their certification has expired, and it would be really good if people who've got first aid certificates could let us know so that we can ask them to come and attend. They don't need necessarily to do any work, although of course they're welcome to do so. And this is particularly a problem at the Hotspur Bottom near Beaconsfield, the work there on our reserve, where we don't have a first aider at the moment. Now, something we've done in the past, and it's been really successful, is to target our recording so that we get recording done in a series of what you might call systematic surveys, rather than just ad hoc surveys where, unfortunately, many people all go to the same best nature reserves. And this training had to stop because it means meeting indoors, or it used in the past to mean meeting indoors, having a talk, and then going out and trying out your new survey technique, as you can see this group doing. This year, what we're going to do, we've had this idea and the committee came up with a brilliant way of improving it. We're going to do some online training, and that'll be on a Thursday evening. And then on 3 occasions, we'll follow the online training with walks. And the walks will be in Oxfordshire and Berkshire and Buckinghamshire. And these walks will take place 2 days or 3 days after the training. So the idea is you watch some training online and then go out and meet in the field to try out your training, to try your techniques and get some advice on the best way to do it. So we think this will work really well. And the fact that we're able to offer it in all 3 counties on the same day means that people haven't got to travel a very long way to take part in the training. This training that we're doing is, or will be doing, is based on what works so well this year for something called the chalk, cherries and chairs. And you see the group at the bottom. They were learning how to identify things, and what they did was exactly as I've described. They had training by Zoom in the evening, and then the next day they went out and practiced their survey technique. It went very well, so I'm really positive about this year's events, and I'm very pleased that other people are helping by taking training courses in different counties, so we're not expecting people to travel a long way. All this stuff, everything I'm talking about, is on the website, which David Hastings runs absolutely brilliantly. He keeps it up to date, and you can keep up to date by looking there to see what's going on. Very often when we send you a Hairstreak newsletter, the Hairstreak newsletter doesn't contain the very most up-to-date things, because by the time it's been written and edited and then published, things are slightly out of date, but completely up to date requires that you should please go to the UTB website. And if you could try to make a point of looking at it maybe every month to see what's new and what's changed, because the Hairstreak magazine doesn't come out that often. There are people we know who are not getting Hairstreak. And if you're on this Zoom meeting today, you probably did get it. But if you know any other members who are not getting Hairstreak, could you please tell them that they must let us know, either Brenda or me, and they must tell head office, because head office have had some sort of dreadful malfunction with their membership database, and some people who are members without any question are not getting Hairstreak. The place to go to find all the information on a more regular basis is the Butterfly Conservation Upper Thames branch webpage. And if you just search for Upper Thames butterflies, that will find us. Now, mentioning Hairstreak brings me to the point that Dave Ferguson, the editor of the Hairstreak, is stepping down, and we want to thank Dave very, very much. He gave us about 7 years and 20 issues of Hairstreak. And I know, because I get all the comments about all the positive things we do, which is one of the best things about being the chair. When people have something nice to say, they tell you. So I've heard quite a lot from people saying how much they enjoy Hairstreak, how great they think it is. So thank you, Dave. You've done the branch a tremendous favor by your editorship. Thank you. And we have a token of appreciation for you, which I'm going to show here. And I'm hoping I'll hold it up in a minute when I'm back in my camera mode as opposed to share screen. I'll show it then, but I'm not sure how well it will be picked up by the camera. So the committee have clubbed together and bought this for you. It's a print from Richard Lewington showing the tiger moths, and we hope that you'll enjoy that. And each time you see it, you'll think about the work you did for us and the fact that we were very grateful. The editorship of Hare Street will now pass to Sally Hughes, who has very kindly come forward and offered to take that on. The Hotspur Bottom Reserve, as you'll probably know, we have a single reserve in this branch, and the Hotspur Bottom Reserve is really wonderful. It's been a true delight this year. I mean, it was fantastic last year, especially during times when it was impossible to meet with people indoors, but going there, always a lift of the spirits, but especially so last year. I think the summer there was wonderful. 30 species of butterfly were recorded, 32 species of butterfly were suspected, but 2 of them were sightings where nobody was absolutely able to 100% say that definitely was it. So the reserve just goes from strength to strength, which is all down to the fact that volunteers turn up and do conservation work. Brilliant. I mean, if it was left to itself, it would just turn into a thicket of dogwood, blackthorn and other scrub, but it is wonderful. The sheep are there at the minute grazing, so at the moment I'm afraid you can't go in. We led a guided walk around our reserve this summer, 2021, and so many people turned up for that we had to break them into separate groups, because at the time the COVID guidance was that groups shouldn't be more than 15. So we had to split into separate groups, but great to see so many people there enjoying our reserve. Conservation work, did I mention that? Takes place at Hotspur Bottom and elsewhere. See event page for details. You can come along and do what these people are doing. Look, not quite sure what they're all doing, but they appear to be putting their feet on some mud. If you could do that, you could help us with conservation. Back to conservation. The species champion, Peter Cuss, who looks after all the scarcer moths, led a whole range of surveys. I don't know how he finds the time, the energy and the expertise to be on top of all these things, but Peter did a fantastic job, and his payback came in the rediscovery of Silvery Arches within the Upper Thames branch. Down in Berkshire, Silvery Arches were rediscovered, and we hadn't seen that for 8 years. So that is fantastic news. Other moths that Peter was surveying for did quite well, all apart from, unfortunately, the pale shining brown, which once again we failed to find. At the bottom, you can see a group that were out doing their moth work in the day, looking for moth caterpillars, and the surveying for striped lichenous larvae was very successful again, in that we found, through all the different surveys, thousands of caterpillars. But as you'll see, on this particular day, this group found 680 larvae, which isn't bad, is it, when you think how difficult it is to find a caterpillar on a plant. Staying with moths, we've begun an online UTB moth atlas, or that is to say, those who are working on it have started work on it, and it will eventually have an appearance similar to the one that you see there for Norfolk moths, because we're using the expertise of Jim Wheeler, who set this one up for Norfolk moths, to create ours. We are spending members' money on this, and we hope they will approve of that, and it will make it very much easier to see the records that you've put in as a moth recorder. We know that at the moment, when you send in your moth records, you do it as an act of faith that we're doing something with them. This will show that the records are received. You'll be able to see where other people are recording as well as your own records. And it should help us, because we'll be able to go out to landowners and say, did you know you've got this particular scarce moth on your land? Here's a map showing where it is. You can see it's hardly anywhere, but you've got it. Can we help to conserve it there and keep it in your flying in your land? So the year that's just finished, we did have reduced opportunity to get out and do things in the way that we have done in the past, but we did definitely see a resurgence in activities. We had more guided walks, for instance. We did a bit more survey training, not a lot more, because it was all a bit late in the year that they relaxed the rules, but we did get a bit more of that done. And there were very positive signs. For instance, as you see here with the Duke, I don't know whether it was because we had a Duke of Edinburgh student. This isn't Ava, by the way, Aga rather, who did the work in Berkshire. This is another person. This is Cassie. And she, for her Duke of Edinburgh work, came through to the branch. She was sent through to us with a question, could we find anything for her to do for her Duke of Edinburgh qualification? And we said, well, she could look at cowslip leaves for Duke eggs. And to our amazement, she found them in a set-aside field, a field that's been reverted or wilded, as the convention has it these days, next to Steps Hill. And that's the first time eggs have been found away from the Ivinghoe colony ever, as far as I know. So that's brilliant, and shows that butterflies are beginning to respond where farmers are relaxing their spraying and cutting and ploughing techniques. We all love butterflies and moths, don't we? And look at the delight on that little girl's face. This is from the days when we used to go to Countryfile and have events with families turning up. And she's looking at a limehawk caterpillar. I think we all share that same joy, and that's why we're so interested in the society, because of the wonderful feeling we get when we see butterflies and moths and their caterpillars and their eggs and pupa. So the question is, as they're doing so badly, as they're in such plight, should we be doing more to help them? Or more precisely, should you be doing more to help them? As I've said, we get so much from them. Shouldn't we be doing something to help? That background noise isn't me. David, is it possible you could, oh, I don't suppose you can without muting me. Whoever it was, can you please mute yourself? Thanks very much. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to finish up by saying that nationally, Butterfly Conservation have launched a new strategy which should help us, because what they're going to try and persuade people to do is join in with this strategy, and people will come through to us as the local branch and say, can we help? They've heard about this, they've heard about the plan to get conservation going, really kick-started, really surging ahead, doing something positive for wildlife, and they'll be looking for our help. Only yesterday, once again, I mean, this happens all the time, but only yesterday afternoon, I had a call from a lady who said she has been trying to manage some of her land, which was arable, as pasture. She's been putting sheep on it. She's got some sheep that are prepared to eat rubbishy old grass and scrub. And she's got 1 or 2 acres, which are doing really nicely, thank you, under that management. But she's just been approached by the farm next door, the land next door, and she's now got 200 acres to put back to pasture. And she wants Butterfly Conservation to go in because she's heard about us and how we've helped other people, and advise her on how to get the best for butterflies and moths on that land. And that is such a testament to the Upper Thames branch. The first people, as far as I know, from the way she described it to me, we were the first people she'd contacted for advice. And that's great, and just shows what a wonderful job we're doing. That most weeks I get phone calls from people saying, I've heard about the Butterfly Conservation Group. Is there a chance you could help us? Obviously, as we get more and more people asking to help, we need more and more people, members, who are prepared to go out and do something to help me to keep in touch with all those folks. But it is fantastic that we've got such a positive reputation as a branch, that landowners come to us possibly even before they go to people like Bebout. I'm not suggesting that we're better than them, but it's great that we've got such a good profile. So this is the strategy. That over half of the UK's threatened species of butterflies and moths are going to be helped out of threatened status back to being stable. 100 of the most important landscapes, and I can't tell you where they are if you're going to put that in chat. Which are those? I don't know, I'm afraid. It hasn't been, the list hasn't been published. And in the same way, wild spaces. So this is quite separate. These landscapes will be picked from around the country. There's got to be a representation of both fantastic landscapes like the Morecambe Bay landscapes that we're going to hear about from Chris Winnick later, as well as, I hope, the Chilterns and maybe the Oxfordshire Downlands, the Berkshire Downs, who knows. But in addition, this 100,000 spaces is things like parks, amenity ground, where the council have bits of green space. It'll be places like road verges. It'll be people's allotments. So this is a slightly different thing, but it's really positive and a great initiative by Butterfly Conservation. You'll probably know that the Wildlife Trust are doing exactly the same thing, and it is not that we're in competition. It's all going to be joint. And this will be joint too with Plant Life and Bug Life and all the other organizations, a huge push from all of them in the same direction at the same time. Please let it work. Please let it work. So volunteers, I might have hinted that I was looking for volunteers. So we need people for all sorts of things. One of the things that always surprises me is that every year I say, is there a photographer who could come out to the things we do and get some photos so we could post them on social media and show the pictures at talks like this? You end up always looking at the pictures I take when I remember. We could do with someone who's actually a good photographer and prepared to come along and record things. I'm surprised that no one's interested in that. I would have thought somebody would say, well, I quite like taking pictures and it's nice to have a purpose. So yes, I'll record what you're doing. But it isn't really to help me or our social media. It's because butterflies and moths will benefit from it. There's a big chart that I publish and hand out when we meet in a hall that lists all the different things you could do, but you could find out what you could do. Don't try and read all this tiny print now. I don't think it's sensible, but all these various jobs are listed on our website, but you could just email any member of the committee and say, is there any way that I can help, please? Because I realize butterflies and moths have been suffering for ages. The situation isn't getting better yet, but with enough volunteer effort, it could improve. What can I do to help? We can use help in any way that you can offer it, really. So the Upper Thames branch, we are the members. The Upper Thames branch isn't me, the chair. It isn't even the committee. It's the members. Thousands of people who are going out there and doing their bit. So I'd like to say thank you to the members. It's amazing what we managed to achieve. It really is. And it's so wonderful. I'm sure more people would be the chair if they knew how nice it was to get all the phone calls and emails I get saying lovely things about the Upper Thames branch. Thank you so much, everyone. You really do make doing so easy and delightful. It's great. A real honor, as it says there. I'm breaking up slightly thinking about it, but it is great. People really think a great deal of the Upper Thames branch, and that's down to you. It's not me. Obviously, one person couldn't make that much difference. It's down to you. So thank you very much. And that's that. So we might get some questions just before I go on, but how are we doing for time? 11:01. Pretty good. 3 minutes if anybody wants to do something. Yeah, the committee does a fab job. Absolutely. Well done. Oh, well, are you sure that's a privet hawk? Well, perhaps it was a privet hawk. I'm never going to claim that my identification of hawk moth caterpillars is perfect. I think we had this discussion before, actually, Ched. At the time when that picture was first shown on social media, there were several people had opinions about what it was. So I'm going to claim that that was a tricky one, but I'm quite prepared to believe it was a privet. Okay, well, in that case, I think we can move on to the Treasurer's report. So if you're ready, please, Chris, would you like to take over and I'll be quiet for a minute?
Yep, I think I'm getting there. I'm just going to try sharing a screen. Oh, no, then what do I want? Don't want any of those. Oh God, it doesn't give me anything I want. Now then, let's try this. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Hang on.
Click on the screen and then click on the share button, which is on the right. Right away, I think.
I've got that.
So you click on the share screen green arrow button at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get them both at the same time.
And then you select the window you want to share, and I think you have to select share again.
Oh, right, okay. Click that one and click that one. Have you got it now?
No.
Oh, that's a share. No, you don't want that one. You don't want that one. I mean, I've got the page up, but I can't then see the. No, it doesn't work, does it?
Once you've clicked on the share screen, it shows you all your screens. If you click on one of them,
it gives me something which is, nothing. Doesn't give me the files that I want. It's talking about stuff that was on. Now,
sometimes close all the windows you don't want at the moment. So you have a look at which ones to share.
Yeah. What are the? Yeah, well, let's see. Yeah. Now I've got. See, if I click on the account that I want to share, then I can't see the Zoom screen to be able to click on share screen.
So what do you see when you're in Zoom and you click on share screen?
Well, I can see my wait a minute, I can see my desktop now. No, that doesn't help. Do I click that?
Here it comes. Here it comes. Yeah, so we can now see your computer screen. If you want to open, there we go.
Can you see that?
Yeah, it's quite small. If you could zoom in to the spreadsheet.
How's good. That?
Yeah, that's good for me. I can't see everyone else. Yeah, I assume everyone else can see it.
Fine, you can see all things. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we can see that. I can confirm that.
Thanks.
Right. Okay. Good. Well, I'm glad. Okay, we got there eventually. So my report for the last financial year to the 31st of March, the branch finances have continued to show a healthy position. Total income for the year increased by £12,266.91 to £28,518.95 compared to the previous year. And total expenditure for the year increased by £2,350.55 to £12,561.52 compared to the previous year, which you can see from down there at the bottom. Increasing branch membership, which you can see there, resulted in an increase in the amount received from head office for subscriptions of £528 to £8,715. And income from donations and grants increased overall by £14,482.46 during the year compared to the prior year, principally due to a legacy donation of £16,768.33, which is included in that figure you see on screen. The review by Natural England of the higher level stewardship scheme that resulted in our receiving a double payment under this scheme in the previous financial year reverted to normal in 2021, with us receiving £683.88 for the Hotspur Bottom Reserve, which is that figure down there. Expenditure for the year was principally for conservation work in our region and small items of equipment, with the increase over the prior year accounted for by a donation of £10,000 to head office to support the regional officer post, which you can see down there. As a result of the foregoing, income exceeded expenditure by £15,957.43, which together with the balance carried forward from the prior year of £13,923.06, resulted in a balance in hand at the end of the year of £29,880.49, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen. As you can see, it was a fairly quiet year. As Nick has already said, we didn't do much work that required paying out money, but hopefully there'll be more in this current year. But if anybody wants to make any comments or has any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Thanks, Chris. It's all seemed very clear to me. Don't think there's any questions.
Right, I'll stop sharing that screen then.
And I'll add my thank you, Chris. Thank you for keeping our money in check. I'll remind the membership that we don't take a vote any longer on whether we accept the financial statements prepared by Chris, because it's all done now by external auditors. So the branch no longer vote on whether they accept it. It goes off to an independent auditor. And as always, it will be absolutely wonderful this year. And they'll say thank you to us. And that will all we'll hear is that we're sending in paperwork of the highest quality, and they're very happy with it. So we go on now to Dave Wilton, please, who's going to lead us through the bit where several of us have to step down on rotation, but I'll let Dave explain all that.
Yes, as you probably already know, we have a system whereby a third of the committee, or roughly a third of the committee, stands down at each AGM and seeks re-election if they wish to seek re-election. And this year, it is the turn of Graham Hawker, Chris Woodrow, and myself. So it's Graham, who's the vice chairman, Chris, treasurer, and myself as secretary. So we're all standing down and seeking re-election. And in addition, we have David Hastings, who has volunteered to join the committee as our website manager. So there are 4 people to elect, basically. So what we would like is somebody from the floor to propose and somebody else to second that those 4 people be re-elected or elected to the committee. So would somebody like to offer to do that?
I'm happy to propose.
So David will propose, and we just need a seconder now.
And I'm happy to second.
Great, thank you, Hugh. And then we need to carry out a vote, and I think probably the easiest way to do that is to ask if anybody has or doesn't want to.
Actually, just hang on a second, Dave.
Yeah.
Sorry, David Roy has set up a poll for us.
Oh, right.
I'm afraid
Okay.
you weren't. I should have thought to tell you. You weren't with us when we did this at about 9:40 this morning. We set up a poll and tested it. I'm sorry, David. I should have warned Dave that this was going to happen. Everyone's called Dave or David. It's very confusing. Right, I'll be quiet again.
Well, that's all right. We can do it via a poll then. But David of the Roy variety would have to explain how that works.
Well, okay. Well, I'll launch the poll. Very simple. Hopefully, if people could just click yes or no when they see it on the screen, or abstain, and then we'll get a record of the votes. I think you'll probably all see it as we vote. But I'll launch it now, and hopefully if this works, if not, we can try a different way. So I am, can you see a poll now?
Not yet.
No, afraid not.
Okay, let me relaunch it. There we go.
Yep, that's there.
Yep, we can see it.
So please click yes, no, or abstain.
And then submit.
And submit. So we're 28 people, so we're getting up very quickly. Also, good check that people are still awake and still on the screen, behind the screen. There we go. I'll end it there. So clear. 26 out of 26 who voted accepted. Okay.
Excellent. Right. Thanks very much, David. That's certainly an easier way of doing it. And that's the end of that bit of business then. Back to you, Nick.
Right. Well, thanks very much. I don't know if anyone's recording this fact as part of the record of the meeting, but look, we're running slightly ahead of time. Who would have thought it? with me talking all morning and it's still on time. Probably a first. At this point, there was time for any other business. So I'll just pause briefly and see if anyone does want to make any comment or ask any questions of the committee. And if there isn't any other business at this minute, I suggest we take a short break. I can go and refill my coffee cup because my waitress seems to have gone out to do some gardening, which I'm sure wasn't in the contract. And the same might be true for others who feel that they could do with getting a refreshed cup. So are there any questions, observations to the committee, please?
I'll stop recording now, Nick, as well. Just so we
Yeah, okay, we'll stop recording at this point.